Hello and welcome to Boxing Tonight, Mirror Fighting's preview of this evening's bout. I'm Martin Dorman, joined by Rich Jones. Please do give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. There is, of course, only one place to start and finish tonight. That's in London. World Heavyweight Champion Anthony Joshua returns to defend his 3 belts against Kubrat Pulev. Of course, a fight, Rich, that was supposed to happen back in 2017. Pulev injured his shoulder, pulled out, replaced by Carlos Takam. And to be fair, he has worked his way back up since then. However, his best win was Hughie Fury in Bulgaria. Fury had a cut early on. I don't think Anthony Joshua, despite what happened last year, has had too many sleepless nights.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you sense that Kubrat Pulev is just kind of on that tier, kind of below the elite heavyweights, probably just around the sort of Hughie Fury level, kind of below the elite tier. But yeah, so you don't think that Joshua will have too many, issues with it, but also for Pulev, it's a huge opportunity. It's his last chance to kind of break into those upper echelons of the heavyweight division. And I think for Joshua, it's all about those sort of question marks, really, isn't it? Obviously, he was barely put a foot wrong, kind of blew everyone away until he fought Andy Ruiz sort of 18 months ago. Obviously, got that shock defeat, came back and won the rematch very comfortably, but there's still sort of questions over, how well prepared Andy Ruiz was for that fight. It's going to be interesting to see Anthony Joshua in with someone that's not Andy Ruiz and see how he's emerged from those 2 fights and the sort of fighter we've got. So I think we're going to learn a lot more about Anthony Joshua than we will about Kubrat Pulev tonight, probably.
That's a good point, actually. It is 2 years since we saw Joshua fight anyone whose name wasn't Andy Ruiz, such as the basically 2 fights a year for the big names now. And there has been talk about Pulev and Ruiz being on a similar level in terms of ability, but of course, very different in terms of styles. And you're right, does Joshua, at least initially, stick with that sort of safety-first approach we saw in the rematch, or do we see a return to the sort of bit more, not gung-ho necessarily, but a bit more attacking and really look to get him out of there and make a statement? And a lot of that will be mental. As you say, it's a different opponent. Has he switched back to a different mental state, back to his old mental state, and just really got rid of any thoughts that there might be another upset?
Yeah, exactly that. Because like you say, I mean, he went for the same approach that's always worked for him against Andrew Ruiz, and he was winning the fight, and he had Andrew Ruiz down, didn't he? And then obviously it was when he went for the finish that he got caught, and the fight changed with that sort of one punch that staggered him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he approaches things against Pulev, because, obviously if he does get him hurt this time, does he have that same killer instinct? Does he have in the back of his mind that when he went for it in the Ruiz fight, he got hurt? And yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think the biggest thing for me is it's just going to be interesting to see what sort of approach we get from Anthony Joshua. He seems right up for it. He seems really, really sort of, he seems in a good space going into the fight. He seems really determined, really good. Obviously, he got involved a little bit in the sort of verbal stuff at the weigh-in, which we don't really see too often from Anthony Joshua. It was, a side we don't see from him a lot. So, it's just going to be interesting what we get from him on fight night.
You mentioned the weigh-in. Pulev, right away was getting at him. I don't know whether he just is trying to, because he thinks that there is a chink in there after the Ruiz fight, but it was just a bit strange with it. It doesn't, it's never been a fight that's had much needle. Pulev's coming light. He looked in shape, and I don't think Joshua was rattled at all, but it was definitely interesting to see, because it just felt like something that hadn't been on the cards. And I don't really know whether Pulev is just like some sort of late desperate attempt to unsettle him, but I can't see it having any effect, as you say.
Yeah, exactly what you say. It wasn't like I don't think either of them particularly rattled by it. It wasn't like either of them got the other one to sort of lose their cool. It was very kind of calculated. It was very just 2 men really up for it, sort of shouting about what they're going to do to one another. Like you say, you didn't really see it coming, so it's going to be interesting. I think for Pulev, it's Pulev, it's going to be a massive test, and like you say, it's a massive opportunity for him. It's probably his last chance. He's getting on a little bit now. It's his chance to break in. But yeah, you could compare him to the level of Andy Ruiz, who upset Joshua, but I think Ruiz always, his style was kind of all wrong for Anthony Joshua. He was like a smaller guy. He was sort of had good hand speed, and I just don't think I feel like Pulev's going to come out and try and use the jab, and style wise, I just think he's quite a good fit for Anthony Joshua. So I don't see him causing too many problems.
Exactly, and there's a lot made. Of course, it's a pay-per-view, so it's got to be sold and sold and sold and rammed down your throats and everything else. And we're told that Pulev is this and that and the next thing. But he's 39, and Hearn often bangs on about he's only lost once, and that was to Vladimir Klitschko. But he was comprehensively beaten by Vladimir Klitschko. This was no close points decision victory. He was knocked out, stopped, and honestly, like looking at his record, it's very, very difficult to pick out anybody who you think would give Joshua trouble. Let's put it that way. And it would have been interesting to see him fight Hughie Fury without Fury being cut. May well still have been the same result. But, Pulev's done well to get into a mandatory slot twice with the record he has.
Yeah, he's obviously done well with the IBF and got himself well placed there, and he's got his shot. And, fair play to him. I mean, it's not the greatest sort of matchup in the world, but at the same time, like there's not a huge supply of heavy. I mean, obviously, we'd all love to see Anthony Joshua in with Tyson Fury, but it's not happened yet for whatever reason. Obviously, the Ruiz thing was a setback, and there's not an endless list of like top tier heavyweights. There's only, as we've been on about for years, it's the three really, isn't it? It's Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, and then outside of them, you've got that tier just below. And, I think Kubrat Pulev deserves to be in that tier, really. He's obviously only lost to Vladimir Klitschko. Granted, it was quite comprehensive, but he's beaten he's beaten not the best opposition, but he's beaten, decent people. He's probably, the win over Hughie Fury obviously puts him slightly above him. And I think, I don't have too many complaints of it. It's obviously a mandatory defense. And if he gets it out of the way and gets into the bigger fights in the future, then it is what it is. And as far as the pay-per-view goes, it's just one of those things, isn't it? Where Anthony Joshua's the biggest draw in British boxing. Arguably, you can make the case for Tyson Fury either way, but both of those guys, whoever they fight, are going to be pay-per-view. I mean, you're going to get Floyd Mayweather fighting a YouTuber on pay-per-view, and it's because Floyd Mayweather's the profile he is. So, whoever Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury face, it's always going to be on pay-per-view, because at the end of the day, people are tuning in to see them rather than the opponent. So I don't have too many issues with it. Obviously, there's fights that we'd rather see, but I think, we've seen worse fights.
This is true. And to be honest, it's actually, hopefully, you mentioned Tyson Fury, worked out very, very well, because after Fury beat Wilder in February, we had at least Fury Wilder again, plus Kubrat Pulev Joshua as hurdles before we got to Fury Joshua. Now we're told that the only hurdle is tonight. Joshua beats Pulev, and there are no roadblocks other than Fury saying no or Joshua saying no to that fight happening, whether it's for all the belts, whether it's for 3 belts. We don't know. But we can talk about tonight's fight, and we can debate it, and we can, till the cows come home. But really, all we want, probably a good Joshua performance, a stoppage performance, so that Fury doesn't say, "Oh, I don't want to fight him. What's the point? He's rubbish." A good stoppage performance, just to make sure that we're as close as possible to Fury Joshua next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be the key, isn't it? Like I say, it's about what we're going to learn from Anthony Joshua tonight, I think, rather than anything else. And the way he wins and the way he performs is going to be the big thing that is going to sort of set things up for hopefully the fight with Tyson Fury, isn't it? If Joshua sort of wins in style, then you're going to have all the questions of, oh yeah, has Fury got what it takes to, if he gets caught by Joshua, can he take it and all that sort of thing? And on the other side of things, if Joshua sort of goes a distance, looks a bit sluggish, then everyone's going to be favouring Fury. So it's interesting though, isn't it? Because there was all this sort of, this conversation feels a bit similar to when he fought Andrew Ruiz the first time, and it was all about Deontay Wilder, wasn't it? It was all, get this out of the way, get the US debut done, and then on to Deontay Wilder. And obviously he took his eye off the ball a little bit, I think, and got beat. So I don't think he's going to ever make that mistake again. He's talked a little bit about it in the press this week. And like I say, I don't think the style matchup is going to be an issue like the Andrew Ruiz one was. But it is quite interesting that we've all sort of fallen into the same boat of kind of talking about what's next when we saw what happened when that happened in terms of the Deontay Wilder fight, that obviously has never happened, and you struggle to see when it will happen now, not anytime soon. So, yeah, it's interesting. I know Joshua himself has been talking about not getting carried away and only focusing on Kubrat Pulev, rightly so. But yeah, from our point of view, it's all going to be all the talks. Obviously, Tyson Fury, he said he's not going to be there, but he's kind of lingering around in the background, isn't he? His shadow's hanging over it. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm sure he'll have plenty to say on social media tonight as well, even if he's not ringside. So, we'll see what he's.
I hope so. I mean, it would just be like 2020 for this to go badly wrong tonight, but let's keep the faith. I'm disappointed he's not going to be there, or at least he said he's not going to be there. It seems like he doesn't want to get caught up in the Eddie Hearn show. There's obviously not really much love lost there, but it would be so iconic if he and Joshua got in the ring. You know, however they have to be kept apart for social distancing, whatever, even that is iconic in a way. But that picture goes around the world, whatever they say goes around the world, and all of a sudden it just feels that little bit more real, you know, because they are in the ring together. It's understandable. And listen, if the fight comes off, I don't care if he's there or not, but it would have been really nice, and I think really effective if they just managed to get him there tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it seems like he's definitely not going to be there. He said it the other day, didn't he? And yeah, I can see his side of it. But yeah, I agree. It would have been nice if he was there. It would have been, even if he wasn't in the ring, if you had one of those where he was, you know, just outside the ring talking to each other. And yeah, I think everyone would like to see that. But yeah, maybe not to be. And I mean, whilst that would have been nice, if and hopefully when the fight does happen with Joshua and Fury, I don't think it's going to matter too much. It's sort of one of those that sells itself, doesn't it? It's such a great matchup, such a great fight. So yeah, but would have been nice for Fury to be there, I think. And I think I kind of agree with what Eddie Hearns said in that. I mean, obviously Eddie Hearns just trying to get him to be in attendance to help his show, but I think I'm quite surprised he doesn't want to be there. I'm surprised he doesn't want to see Joshua up close and just, you know, get a look at things, really. I'm quite surprised that he doesn't seem keen on it, but it is what it is. I mean, he's always done things his own way, hasn't he, Tyson Fury? So who can begrudge him that?
That is very true. So Joshua and Pulev should be in the ring around about 10:30, maybe heading towards 11:15. That's on Sky Sports box office, of course. Before that, there is an undercard. It's taken a few hits, perhaps not the strongest, but the sort of co-main event, if you like. Well, let's start at the bottom. I mean, actually, the first fight is on Sky Sports Facebook, around about 5:15. Is Ashfaq against Ashley Lane. Really just Ashfaq looking to bounce back rich after that surprise defeat in October. And, you know, he should be able to do that all right. Kieran Conway, disappointingly, was supposed to replacement opponent now, Macaulay McGowan, who lost, I think, also October, took on an Uzbek fighter, a very good one. Actually, I think I missed one there. Florian Marco, you've spoken to him in the past. He makes his Matchroom debut. Actually, these fights really annoy me. It was the same last week with Lerone Richards. Signed for Matchroom. They sling them in early against an opponent at 2 days' notice. I just don't really want to see these kind of fights, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's just a platform, isn't it? It's just, especially with, I mean, I think the Lerone Richards one especially, like Lerone Richards has never been one for sort of stoppages and knockout power. He's always been like a boxer. He needed the round. So it was one of those where you sort of sense it was always going to be one of those that was going to sort of plod on through the rounds and sort of just go through the motions. I think at least with Florian Marco, from what we've seen of him in the past, he's at least, I think the idea is obviously he's going to go in there, blitz him out, put like quick stoppage, sort of put on a show, like announce himself, his Matchroom arrival. So at least, you know, it'll hopefully be over sort of fairly quick and easy. But yeah, I agree. It's one of those. There's not really much. It's just a showcase, isn't it? It's just to get him out there, get his name on the card, and get him on the platform. So yeah, not the best one. But I think you mentioned the Kieran Conway Macaulay McGowan fight as well. I think that I'm quite intrigued by that one because obviously Kieran Conway was meant to be fighting Suleiman Sissoko until Sissoko pulled out a few weeks ago. I think that would have been a really tough test for him. I think Sissoko, from what we've seen, looks really good. I think that would have been a tough night for Kieran Conway. But as it is, he's against Macaulay McGowan, who you mentioned he fought. I think it was Kazakh, who had a great amateur career a few weeks ago on a different card, MTK card, and he got beaten comprehensively, but never stopped. Like he took some real good shots, took a real beating without being stopped. He hung in there for the rounds. And I think with Kieran Conway, the big question has been his power. He's obviously a slick boxer. He's smart. He drew with Ted Cheeseman. He thinks he won it. But he's not. He's still growing into his power, and he's at the minute it's the power that's sort of the question mark, I think. So I'm really intrigued to see if he can sort of win, if he can stop Macaulay McGowan, and if he can, because I think Macaulay McGowan's obviously a tough guy. I think it's quite an interesting fight, this one. Although it would have been a bigger name and a bigger test if he'd fought Sissoko, I think this could be a quite interesting little fight. I'm quite excited for that one.
Interesting. And then I'll be honest, if I hear the words "fights of the night" contender in relation to Martin Piccoli and Sergei Kuzmin once more, I will scream. It may well be. I'm not denying that it will be, but everybody has mentioned it this week. And it probably is the standout candidate for that order, if you like. Both men have lost once, both to Michael Hunter. Kuzmin's last fight, actually, losing to Michael Hunter. And another cliche, it's a crossroads fight. It's very difficult to, well, let's put it this way. The loser has a long way back, and the winner can legitimately start to move on towards sort of top 15 opposition. Yeah,
definitely. Piccoli certainly has been, there was a lot of talk about him. It was quite a surprise when he lost to Michael Hunter. I think that was kind of seen as his coming out fight. He was going to sort of kick on, and obviously didn't happen for him. So, especially sort of being on Matchroom, it's sort of, big night for him. If he can win, you're sort of looking at him to kind of push on and see how far he can go. I mean, I know obviously Billy Nelson's been a big, his trainer Billy Nelson's backed him a lot in the past, and been quite vocal in his praise of Piccoli. But a tough test against Sergei Kuzmin. So big night for both of them. See where they're going to go. And it's typical heavyweight title fight, undercard fight, isn't it? Pack the heavyweights on there. Obviously, we'll come on to Hughie Fury in a minute. It's kind of typical fight for one of these sort of cards, and I think they usually go one or two ways, don't they? It's either a bit of a thriller, or it can sort of plod on and go the distance. So hopefully, it's the first of those, and it's sort of we get some fireworks.
I hope so too, because you mentioned Hughie Fury. I struggle to see this one catching fire, to be honest. Again, it feels like a fight that's been built up, of course, by the promoters. That is their job. But Eddie Hearn actually said the words, Marius Ashfaq was in a good fight with Dillian Whyte last year. Now, that fight was many things. It was not good. It was abysmal. I mean, partly because Dillian Whyte wasn't really in shape. But it was dreadful. And listen, Marius Ashfaq, he's a gatekeeper to something, but I don't think Hughie Fury should be fighting a gatekeeper. I know Hughie Fury will fight anyone. He's lost 3 times at a decent level, a good level. Povetkin, Parker, and Pulev, as we mentioned. And it's fine if you want to have this fight, but I'm so unenthusiastic about it.
Yeah, I share their sentiments. I mean, Hughie Fury is a good fighter, and I rate him. And he's obviously, you say his 3 defeats are against sort of high level opposition, but like he's never really been one for fireworks. And like you say, Vac, all I can think of from him is really that Dillian Whyte fight, which was, not the best. Just kind of plodded along, didn't it? It was one of those. I think I remember it was on the undercard for the Joshua rematch, wasn't it? I think the second Ruiz fight, and it was one of those, like you said, Dillian Whyte wasn't in shape and he was winning quite comfortably, but you were just like, come on, let's get to the end of this so we can get on to the main event. I think it'll probably be a bit similar tonight, really. Like both of them I don't doubt both of them are good fighters, but I just don't see how this matchup does anything more than go the distance, really, and just be quite cagey affair. So it's not the most eye-catching of fights, to be honest.
No, get your money on Hughie Fury on points. The final undercard fight, Lawrence Ocooley, of course, listen, really a shame for him. It was supposed to take on Krzysztof Głowacki for the vacant WBO Cruiserweight World title, but he tests positive for COVID, so instead we have Nikodem Jezewski. I think this will be an early night for Lawrence Ocooley, put 2020 to bed, and then get that Głowacki fight early next year.
Yeah, you got to hope so. It's a tough one for him. It's going to be. It's obviously he seems to have. I mean, I heard Eddie Hearn say he took the news quite well, but it's got to be a tough one to take. it's how he comes into it, isn't it? Does he come into it kind of just going through the motions, just wants to get over and done with, or does he come into it with a bit of spite in the fact that, you know, he's obviously had this awful situation where his world title shot's fallen through and he just wants to sort of take it all out on the man opposite him. I think it's quite interesting because Ocooley, he's kept winning. He's sort of moved quite quickly in his professional career, but he's obviously never been the most exciting to watch. He's always been quite scrappy. He's got quite an unorthodox style. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see he's had kind of a quite substantial run now working with Shane McGuigan. So I'm just interested to see sort of the development of his style and the sort of just how he might have changed a little bit as a fighter, having worked with a different trainer for a while now. It's been, I think his last fight or his last couple of fights were with Shane McGuigan, but he's had that substantial run now working with him, with obviously everything that's happened in 2020. So that's one thing to look out for, see what we get from Lawrence Ocooley. But no matter how he wins it, you'd imagine there won't be too many problems, and he'll hopefully get that shot he's after with the WBO next year.
Indeed. Finally, Rich, a prediction from you for the main event?
I think Joshua will come out firing. I say come out firing. I think he'll sort of start strongly and then sort of really step things up in rounds sort of 3 to 6. I think he'll have too much power and too much for Pulev. I think Joshua by knockout sort of mid rounds, like 4 to 6, something like that. Personally, I think that's what I'll be looking at the bookies. Joshua 4 to 6. Yourself?
Yeah, I'll be disappointed if we hear the bell for the end of the sixth round. I think there would be, unless it's obvious that Joshua, for whatever reason, is deliberately stringing it out. But I think if we get into round 7, then maybe something's not quite right. But let's hope not. Let's hope for an early night for Joshua and that we move on to Tyson Fury next year. Rich, thank you as always. Just one thing before we go. After the bell, which I'm sure everyone watches on a Monday, is now going to be live on a Sunday morning across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, the podcast will be up shortly after that. Please do join me and George Groves and Declan Taylor for what will be really the first word on tonight's action, a really in-depth look at it, and hopefully an in-depth look at Fury Joshua, and of course a preview for Callum Smith Canelo next weekend. Please do join us then. Until then, enjoy the fights.